Welcome to another Explainer, where we take complex historical sources and bring them to life right here. Okay, let's dive into this profoundly detailed history. Today, we're exploring the early years of Prophet Muhammad, specifically the Meccan period. This is literally a foundational era, defined by deep reflection, fierce resistance, and just incredible perseverance. We're going to examine the minute details of how a solitary quest for truth evolved into a movement that would change the world forever.
To really grasp this period, we need to follow the exact sequence of events. So, here's our chronological roadmap. We'll start with the first revelation, move into the call to Islam, examine the intense boycott and the year of sorrow, follow the refugees and the migration to Abyssinia, and finally, look at the miraculous night journey. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The First Revelation, the Cave of Hira.
We actually begin our historical timeline away from the bustling, noisy city of Mecca, focusing instead on a quiet, remote mountainside. Our sources detail that long before any public mission began, Prophet Muhammad used to seek isolation. He would retreat to the Cave of Hira, particularly during the month of Ramadan. He was essentially distancing himself from the falsehoods of his society, choosing instead to worship and just deeply reflect on the wonders of the universe. And according to the accounts of Aisha, this period was marked by a highly specific phenomenon. He began experiencing truthful dreams. The sources describe these dreams as coming true as clearly and inevitably as the break of dawn. He would literally take provisions, stay for many nights, and return to his wife Khadijah only to restock and head right back to the cave.
Well, it was during one of these periods of deep seclusion that the truth came to him. The angel Gabriel, known in the Arabic sources as Jibril, appeared with a very direct command: read. The prophet, being unlettered, replied, "I am not a reader." Now, the angel repeated this command a total of 3 times before delivering these profound verses from the 96th chapter of the Quran. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. This sudden, overwhelming encounter left the prophet in a state of intense fear and anxiety. He immediately left the mountain and rushed straight back to Khadijah, seeking comfort and reassurance.
Khadijah's immediate support here is a crucial detail in this history. She didn't just comfort him, she actually took action by bringing him to her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, an elderly man very well versed in previous scriptures. After hearing the account, Waraka uttered a really powerful prophecy, identifying the entity as the exact same angel sent to Moses, and then he followed it with a stark warning. He said, "I wish I were young and could live until the day your people drive you out." When the prophet asked in surprise if he would truly be expelled, Waraka confirmed that no one brings such a message without facing severe hostility. Shortly after this, Waraka passed away, and the sources note a deliberate pause in the revelation, a period of silence meant to reassure the prophet and deepen his longing for the message to return. When Gabriel finally appeared again, it was to deliver the verses of chapter 74, commanding him to arise, warn, and kickstart his mission.
Section 2. The Call to Islam, from Secret to Public Preaching.
Armed with this divine mandate, the quiet reflection of the cave is officially over. The active, strategic mission begins. Now, because idol worship was deeply entrenched in Mecca, an immediate public declaration was way too dangerous. So for the first 3 years, the call to Islam was completely secret. He approached only his family and those he deemed sincere seekers of truth. It wasn't until the 4th year, following the command to warn your nearest relatives, that he climbed Mount Safa to publicly call the Quraysh tribes to worship one God. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact timeline and shift from secret to public preaching in Mecca. The response? Immediate mockery and rejection. Yet throughout this escalating tension, his uncle, Abu Talib, steadfastly refused to bow to the pressure of the Quraysh, providing essential protection that allowed the prophet to continue.
Let's zoom in on the specific individuals who formed the absolute core of this early, secret movement. The detail here is fascinating. The very first converts were from his immediate household: Khadijah, his wife, Zayd ibn Haritha, his freed servant, and his young cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib. Then comes Abu Bakr al-Siddiq. What the sources emphasize is that Abu Bakr didn't just accept the message, he actively championed it. Through his direct personal efforts, the next 5 prominent companions, Uthman ibn Affan, al-Zubair ibn al-Awwam, Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf, Sa'di ibn Abi Waqqas, and Talha ibn Ubaidullah, were all brought into the fold. This small, incredibly tight-knit network was the true foundation of everything that was to come.
Section 3. Boycott and Year of Sorrow, Persecution in Mecca.
As the public call grew, so did the resistance. We are entering a terribly dark period. 3. That is the exact number of years the early Muslims were subjected to a devastating social and economic boycott. The tribes of Quraysh made a formal binding pact to confine the Prophet and his followers to the harsh, barren valley of Banu Hashim. The terms were absolute. No one was allowed to buy from them, sell to them, marry their daughters, or give women to them in marriage.
To enforce this brutal starvation tactic, the Quraysh wrote the terms of the boycott on a formal document and hung it right inside the Kaaba. After 3 grueling years, some of the more fair-minded leaders of the Quraysh finally decided the siege had gone too far. When they went to retrieve the document to tear it up, they found a remarkable detail. The parchment had been entirely eaten away by insects, except for one surviving phrase at the very top, "In your name, O Allah." With the contract literally destroyed, the 3-year siege was finally lifted.
But the end of the boycott did not bring peace. Sadly, it brought profound grief. Exactly 3 years before the eventual migration to Medina, the Prophet suffered 2 catastrophic personal losses. First, his beloved wife Khadija passed away. Shortly after, his uncle Abu Talib fell seriously ill. The Quraysh nobles actually visited the dying Abu Talib, demanding he stop his nephew's preaching, but the Prophet refused to compromise. Despite the Prophet's desperate pleas, Abu Talib died without declaring the testimony of faith. Losing his greatest emotional support and his primary physical protector in one single year earned this period the heavy title, the Year of Sorrow. Seeking a new base, the Prophet traveled outside Mecca to the city of Taif to invite the Thaqif tribe. But instead of finding sanctuary, they brutally rejected him, responding with physical mockery and absolute ridicule.
Section 4. Migration to Abyssinia, seeking refuge.
With Makkah becoming increasingly hostile and Taif violently rejecting them, the Muslims desperately needed an escape valve. This leads us to the very first migration in Islamic history. About 83 men, along with their families, made the perilous journey across the Red Sea. Why Abyssinia, which is modern-day Ethiopia? Well, the sources tell us the Prophet specifically instructed them to go there because it was ruled by a Christian king named Al-Nagashi, or the Negus. The Prophet described him as a perfectly just ruler in whose land no one was wronged.
The Quraysh, absolutely furious that their prey had escaped, sent 2 skilled envoys, Abdullah ibn Abi Rabia and Amr ibn Alas, bearing lavish gifts for the king, basically demanding the refugees' extradition, and a dramatic diplomatic showdown occurred. Now, what's really interesting about this is the contrast in their exact arguments. On one side, the Quraysh argued that these people had recklessly abandoned the religion of their forefathers. In response, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib stepped forward to defend the Muslims. He eloquently explained how they were lifted from immorality to truth and good character. Then, he recited verses from Surat Maryam, the chapter of Mary. The recitation was so moving that it brought King al-Najashi to tears, prompting him to flatly refuse the extradition. But the Quraysh envoys didn't give up that easily. The very next day, they returned to the king with a new, highly specific theological angle. They claimed the Muslims held terrible, incorrect beliefs about Jesus, obviously hoping to turn the Christian king against them. So al-Nagashi summoned the Muslims again. Their response was completely unhesitating. Jesus is the servant and messenger of Allah. This precise theological clarity entirely satisfied al-Nagashi.